where we should listen to speeches of our external experts invited to this conference. And as you can see, the first expert who will have a presentation on children's digital media usage, online risks and its impact on well-being will be Mr. David Smahel from Interdisciplinary Research Team on Internet and Society from Masaryk University in Brno. The floor is yours, please.
Okay, thank you. So I will speak about children and adolescents and their digital media usage, selected online risks, and about the impact of ICT on well-being. My presentation will be about the developmental context of online behavior, and I will define well-being. I will speak about so-called IMU model. I will introduce the EU Kids Online project. Will introduce what children and adolescents do on the internet. We'll speak about selected online risks, in this case exposure to sexual images and excessive internet use, and then we'll speak also about effects of digital technology on well-being, and we'll finish with discussion and conclusions. So when we speak about children and adolescents, it's quite clear that we need to take in account the developmental perspective because children are starting to use the technology from even 1, 2, or 3 years old very often. And it's completely different if we speak about children aged 5 years when they just don't read, 7 or 8 years when they start reading, 10, 11, or about 15 years old adolescents. We know from the previous research that the development, adolescent development, is interrelated to that what adolescents do on the internet. And we simply cannot speak in general about children or in general about adolescents, but we need the developmental perspective to understand what is going on. I briefly define here also the digital well-being. There are different kinds of well-being. In this presentation, I will speak about psychological well-being, which we define as presence of positive affects and self-evaluation and the absence of negative affects. Social well-being, which is the quality of relationship to others and include, for example, social acceptance and integration. And physical well-being, what is the perception of health, absence of disease, and correct physical functionality. It could be sleeping as well, or body image issues, and this kind of problems. I will briefly introduce a so-called IMU model, which we developed for studying impact of technology usage on children and adolescents. The box on the left are actually individual characteristics of children and adolescents. The individual means the age, gender, also if they are introverts, if they have depressive mood, and so on. There are also developmental tasks like identity, sexuality, friendship, social factors like social support, social control, and also culture. For example, country of residence, values and norms related to the culture. On the next box, there are ICT activities, which can be very much different, and there could be different definitions of online activities. This includes risky activities and also opportunities. That means that the using of the internet and technology can be both the risky, but it is also opportunity on the other hand. And on the right side is the final output, is the well-being, which can be short-term and long-term. That means that ICT can have effect on the short term, such as on the affect, what is my current mood. I use the social media and I get a positive feedback, so it has a positive impact on my current mood. But on the other hand, the long-term effect of using social media can be different than the short-term effect. And in this, we differentiate physical well-being, psychological well-being, and social well-being in this model. The next figures in this presentation are mostly from the EU Kids Online project. And last time we did a survey between years 2017 to 2019. We have the representative samples of more than 1,000 children from each country, and there are altogether 19 countries in this data set. The figures in this presentation are mostly about children aged from 9 to 16 years or from 12 to 16 years. So first, let's look what are children, adolescents, what device they are using to access the internet. As you can see, they mostly use smartphones these days, and it's similar across Europe. 80% of adolescents use smartphone to access the internet. Those are countries in rows. Czech is second. Sorry, the blue arrow should be on the Czech in this case. The first is Switzerland, Czech, Germany, Estonia, Spain, Finland, France, Croatia, Italy, Lithuania, and so on. The down is average. This is from different research. If you ask me how much time adolescents spend on the mobile phones, because the mobile phones are these days the first devices which they use. This is from the research where we installed application into adolescent smartphones, and we wrote a report how much time they spend on the smartphone based on objective data from their smartphone. On the x-axis, there are minutes spent on the mobile phone, so you can see that overall, in average, adolescents spend more than 4 hours daily on the smartphone, and it was somewhat more for girls than for boys. Girls spend almost 5 hours daily on the smartphone, or 4.5, let's say. And what they do, they spend, you can see on the figure 2, that girls spend more time on social networking sites, 96 minutes in average daily, and boys 59 minutes per day approximately. On the other hand, boys spend a little more in gaming. On the mobile phone, they spend about 37 minutes daily in gaming, and girls 22 minutes in games. However, they do a lot of entertainment, both girls and boys, and they use mobile phone for entertainment about an hour per day. This is a game from EU. I can hear something from the audience. Is mistake or question?
I think
mistake, sorry.
Okay. So here on the left, you can see that they do a lot of entertainment. They watch video clips and listen music, and about 2/3 of adolescents are doing this daily. They also do a lot of communication with family and friends, such as in Czech, 70% of children and adolescents said they daily communicate with their family and friends, and 2/3 daily use some social networking sites. They do also gaming, about less than half, 44% in Czech, say they daily do gaming with the technology. I will briefly speak about online risks now. In this presentation, I have space only on the risk of looking sexual images and excessive internet use, but it's clear there are much more other risks, such as cyber hate and cyber aggression and cyberbullying. And I believe my colleague Marie Bedroshova will speak about these risks more today in some of next sessions. There are also, for example, risk of exposure to harmful content, commercial risks such as advertisement, data misuse, as personal data misuse, or gambling. It's good to know that not each of these risks is a danger in the end, because, for example, the looking at sexual images, which I will speak about more, is could be also positive in some way, because if we speak about the broad category of children and adolescents, for sexuality is part of adolescent development, as we know. And if we speak about older adolescent, for them it's quite normal, and sexuality is part of their life in some way, and it's not necessary to see it as automatically as negative. Sorry, I need to drink. This figure is showing a general answer if children and adolescents aged from 9 to 16 saw in the last year any of sexual images or videos, not only online but also on TV or DVD, just everywhere. And you can see that in Czech, 43% of adolescents acknowledge they saw or were exposed to some sexual images or videos. It is over European average because about 33 was the average for the 19 European countries. It's quite obvious there are big age differences in this. If you look on the figure on the right, there are age categories, such as in Czech, where is the blue arrow, 21% of children aged from 9 to 11 acknowledged they saw some sexual materials, but in the age category from 15 to 16 years old, it was almost 80% of them acknowledged this. There are some gender differences. It's not same in all countries, but in Czech, 46% of boys acknowledge they saw some sexual images in comparison to 40% of girls. This figure is showing reactions to seeing sexual images. There was the question, thinking of the last time you have seen sexual images of this kind, meaning sexual images, how did you feel about it? In Czech, there are again big differences between all the countries, but if we focus only on the Czech Republic now, 18% of adolescents from 9 to 16 said they were fairly or very upset, 19% they were a little upset, 35% felt neutral, but 27% felt happy. So we can see that most answers in practically all countries, most prevalent answer was either nor. They feel rather neutral after seeing sexual images. But quite a lot of children, more than a quarter in the Czech Republic, say they were happy after seeing it. So this, as I said, these numbers are general, and we didn't ask specifically if the exposure was wanted or unwanted. That means if the child or adolescent was intentionally looking for sexual images, or if it was so-called unwanted exposure. If the picture or image was just sent by someone, such as peer or friend, and he or she just didn't want to see it. And it's clear there are differences in that, if the exposure was wanted or unwanted, but we have special research in this. I will speak briefly about excessive internet use now. Maybe for some of you it could be surprising, but excessive or problematic internet use is not defined based on the time online. So the time spent online is not part of the definition, but it rather depends on the impact on children or adolescents' life. In this research, we define excessive internet use based on 6 components defined by Griffiths. The first one is salience, and that means that the activity becomes the most important thing in children's life. The second is mood change. What is subjective experience affected by the activity? That means that the child is coming, for example, to the game or social networks, and he or she feels better, like have positive mood, but also possibly negative mood. Other is tolerance. That means what is the process of requiring continually higher doses of the activity. That means that the children need the activity more and more. Another is withdrawal symptoms. What are negative feelings and sensations after stopping doing the online activity? Typically having bad mood after being not online, for example. And maybe most important is the conflict. And the conflict can be typically for children and adolescents with the family or close friends. And it could be also significant decrease in school results or dropping out. The last one is relapse and reinstatement. What is the tendency to return to the damaging online activity after a time of period of relative control? In the EU Kids Online research, we had 5 questions in relation to this criteria. I show percentages of answers of children which acknowledge this happened to them at least on weekly basis. That means they have on weekly basis this kind of problems. If we look at check again, which is second row, 4% of children say that they have gone without eating or sleeping because of the internet weekly. Or 9% said that they have spent less time than they should with family, friends, or doing schoolwork because of the time they spent on the internet. So this is the conflict question, by the way. However, all these factors should be combined because when there is a positive answer on one of these factors, that doesn't mean that the child is using internet in excessive way already. What is danger is combination of all these 5 or 6 factors. So in this figure, we combined all these factors, and that means that if you look at Czech again, 72% of Czech children say they experienced none of these factors weekly. On the other hand, all 5 factors were experienced by less than 1% of children, and 5% acknowledged they experienced from 3 to 4 of these factors weekly. There are also age and gender differences, such as in Czech and in most of countries, older adolescents from 15 to 16 acknowledge they experience those criteria more often, such as 37% of older adolescents experience at least one of these criterion of excessive internet use weekly in comparison to 24% of younger adolescents. In Czech, there were practically non-gender differences, but it was different in different countries. I will jump now to the topic of the impact of digital technology on well-being, and we'll start with the psychological well-being. We know from the previous meta-analysis and synthesis studies, those are type of studies which put together a research from many tens or even hundreds of other studies. And one of these big studies concluded that the effects of ICT on psychological well-being are rather small and mixed. It is important that we need to consider the ICT environment it's practically impossible to speak in general about the impact of the mobile phone or any internet usage, but we must speak about social networking sites or even active or passive usage, about gaming, using it for school and so on. In another systematic review on adolescents, they found that overall relationship with social networking sites use with increased depression, anxiety, and psychological distress. So specific studies can find even negative effects, such as of social networking sites usage on depression, but other studies found also positive effects, and majority of studies found neutral effects. Uh, Even the social networking sites usage can differ. For example, passive Facebook usage can have a different effect for well-being than active usage of Facebook, as it was showed in one of the studies. This is one of most recent study, which I very much like, and I would recommend it to people who are interested in this topic. It is a recent meta-analysis of 141 studies, where altogether were more than 140,000 of respondents, included both adolescents and adults, I note in this case, and this study was published this year. The main conclusion is that most of effects were negligible, with the exception of between-person associations for active use of social networking and greater online support and symptoms of anxiety. It is in this kind of studies, it is important to differentiate between so-called between-person effects and between-person associations, which are rather looking at differences between people and not looking at individual changes in using of media. Those are two different types of studies, but for within subject effects, this study showed that the estimation of effects was negligible for both active use and passive use of social networks. They conclude in this study that negative effects of social networking use on well-being may be concentrated among a subset of adolescents. Now we look briefly on social well-being. I know that there are many types of social well-being. Here I focus on example of loneliness. In one meta-analysis, authors show that the general social networking sites use was weakly associated with increased loneliness. So there was some association, but very weak. Another study showed that non-social usage of ICT, when such usage is excessive, it can lead to higher loneliness, for example. It is important to say that ICT usage can be also so-called moderator. That means that ICT usage can moderate relationships between the personality characteristics and the output as well-being. If we look at the physical well-being, there are many different indicators such as exercise, physical activity, nutrition, overweight, and so on. And we should speak about these hours. But here I focus on indicators of sleep. What is time spent in bed, total sleep time, sleep disruption, sleep quality, and so on. In a systematic review, computer use had the largest negative correlation with the total sleep time, and phone use had very weak associations. In another systematic review, they showed and found again weak effects of mobile phone use on some indicators of sleep. I have one example of our study here. which was done on 201 adolescents who installed this application in their smartphones. So it is based on objective data from the smartphone again. And in this study, we asked if the smartphone usage 2 hours before bedtime is associated to sleeping characteristics. In this study, we didn't find association between patterns of smartphone use before sleep and sleep, but other media use, that means PC, or using notebook or tablets, was associated with worsened sleep, later sleep onset and shorter sleep duration. However, on the within person level, on the individual level, on days when adolescents used smartphones before sleep more extensively than usual, they went to bed a bit earlier and slept a bit longer. So we found even a positive effects of using smartphones on sleep of adolescents, what could be surprising for some of you. Coming to conclusions, the majority of research on effect of digital technology on well-being is speaking about no effects or weak effects. The ICT effects on well-being are not straightforward, and we should really look at concrete ICT usage and environment, as I already said. And there are also many well-being indicators. So it's impossible to speak about well-being in general, or it's hardly possible, but we should look on specific indicators. We also need more longitudinal studies, because current studies are mostly just surveys, questionnaires, and we need to look at these individual effects of ICT usage on well-being. To general conclusions, the effect of ICT usage on well-being is rather weak, so no panic is needed. The association of online risks and the negative impact on well-being, there can be association, but the risks are often the opportunity. So we should think what kind of risk are we speaking about, and what is the effect on well-being. Many online activities can be also beneficial for children's development, but might be also risky. One example is this looking at sexual images, for example. We know from previous research that online and offline risks are interconnected, and offline problematic children can have problems also in the online environment. And as we showed also from the systematic review, that means that negative effects of ICT use on well-being can be relevant very probably for a subset of adolescents, not for everybody. So that means that children should learn how to avoid online risks, how to cope with online risks, and for this we need the family. There is important role of family and teachers, because parents and teachers should learn children and perhaps also adolescents how to avoid online risks and how to maximize opportunities of the internet usage. So that's all. Thank you for your attention, and you can read our web and social networks, and there is also a section for parents, teachers, and media where you can find results of our research in more popular form and readable for most of you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Now we can dedicate a couple of minutes to some questions, if you have any related to this. Before our guests find the courage to ask, I will ask one question. Maybe it is just a remark. Very interesting remark is that you have found risks also related to possible opportunities, which appear to be a good point of view at this, because risks are not isolated from learning from them and learning from the experience. So this is something we have come up with during our yesterday's session, and it was quite a surprising, surprising finding for us.
that we shouldn't be worrying too much about the risks, because every risk can also open another door to some new opportunities. So this is something that you have actually confirmed to us, which I appreciate very much. And the other note is, and now I forgot. Excuse me. Then I better ask our participants, do you have any question before I remember what I wanted to ask? Anyone?
I don't have a question. Okay, sorry, continue.
Go ahead.
No, continue, please.
Okay, I will ask, because we found out that the digital world, digital media have no significantly negative effect on children's well-being. But I would like to ask if you have considered also if the same can be said about the social media and its effect on children's well-being. Because our project is quite focused on how social media affect children and their lives and their well-being. And I would be very curious if there is any data or experience with this, if it is any different from the general digital media effect on the well-being.
As I said, it's practically impossible to speak in general about digital media and its effects because there is certainly so many types of usage of the internet, and it's also practically impossible to speak about social media in general. However, if I can mention our recent analysis, which is actually also looking at day-to-day effects on well-being, and in this study we found that social media had a negative effect on well-being. That means that even on the within person level, that means that adolescents who used more social media than usually, or more than in the average day, let's say, they reported worse positive affect or worse positive affect and more negative affect. So that means there are some studies which really show that social media can have a negative effect on well-being even on the daily basis. However, there are even more studies which show no effect. So it's quite complicated, and it depends really on the study what is the exact focus.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Thank you very much for your contribution. We would like to stick to our schedule because as it's being streamed, we also have participants who come for particular presentations. So thank you very much again. And you are most welcome to stay with us until the end of this session, depends on you. And now we have here the second presenter, who is my dear friend, Dana Robota, whom I have been working with for ages now, if I can say so, because we have implemented many projects together. And she is from Romania, and she works, among other jobs she has and other roles, important roles she has, also at the County Center for Educational Resources and Assistance in Iași, Romania. And Dana, because her main work is aimed at counseling services for families and children and families and their families, I would like to ask Dana to tell us more about how this digital citizenship is being promoted in Romania. Dana, the floor is yours. You can share your screen.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this invitation. I was really interested in the topic of this project. So let's see. I think I need some permission.
I don't think you should be able.
No, I am able. Let's see if I can present this.
Perfect.
Okay, can you see?
Yes.
Okay. So just a quick remark about my my job. Yes, I do many things, but my primary activity is being a school psychologist, a school counselor. This means, among other topics, addressing this social media, this internet addiction, this internet uh, part of our new lives, and to deal with, let's say, more the problems that are related with it than the normal use of it. So probably I have a very different particular subjective perspective on the influence, but I will show you also some very important data. My title is Use of Social Media by Children and Teenagers in Romania, because many of the very recent statistics that I will immediately show you are addressing to this kind of data. But one of the programs that my center launched last year is related with this concept of digital citizenship, which may be a unifying concept in which we can address all this problematic of use of the internet and use of social media for the families, for the educational purpose, and everything related with our digital existence, which needs to be very acknowledged now and in the future. What I will show you is a research made by one of the most influential NGOs in Romania, and I think in most of the European countries. It is a research made by Save the Children, I think it's the name internationally known. And I also was involved in this research. I was part of it because of my skills in doing researches. And as you see, it was made online. It was run last year in May. So the data are, I would say, very fresh. And they will say something about, note it is related with Romanian situation. It is not European addressed. It is showing the situation in Romania. And considering your intervention in the first part of this meeting and just the previous intervention, we will see, I would say, some links. I noticed very similar links between what is already shown and what I will show you. So it seems that the media of the children that spend on the internet is on about 3 hours daily, and 77 of the children report they say they stay on the internet at least these 3 hours. There are more data related with the girls, especially when speaking about doubling this time. And watching online content posted by other users is the main activity of children on social networks. So maybe that is the main core of the importance of studying, especially social media, which is gaining more and more room into the children's preoccupation, and which proves to be much more highly addictive than the general use of the internet. Another very interesting aspect is that 1 out of 2 children specifically mentioned that they follow favorite public figures on social network. And this shows that the influence of, let's say, influencers or other persons or public figures among children is very high, and it is similar as online games or information about areas of interest. So this is something that shows recently. This kind of research is made almost yearly by the Save the Children organization, and this particular aspect is more and more evident in these last 2 years, from the pandemic on, not before, let's say, as a checkpoint. And the choosing of this influencers or of these content producers is not made by any particular channel. It is accidental discovery or discussion about them, and of course the notoriety between them, between the groups of children. Then what we discovered is that children use multiple networks of social media, and they quite split between particular kind of groups. So friends, they usually use some kind of social media. Family, they use a different one. Teacher also, colleagues also. Of course, we all know about Instagram, TikTok, WhatsApp, Snapchat, Discord, and BeReal. What we found in 2023, so last year, is the continuing of decreasing in the use of Facebook for almost a half, as you see. And it seems that the WhatsApp has now the floor of being the main communication mean with the colleagues and also with the teachers and with the officials, let's say. It seems to be even more frequent. In some cases, they reported that the features of the phone, so the classical SMS or the classical call, is now replaced completely by the WhatsApp. Among the others, it seems that TikTok is the most risky social network in entering into contact with strangers on the internet, and the risk is significantly higher in case of children over 15 years old, and especially girls. Then our research, now we are moving on the second part, which is researching the risks and the exposure to child pornography and so on. So we found out that private messaging is the main mean of personal information transmission. Again, girls are more likely to do that in a greater extent than boys. And considering the motivation of online posting and scrolling, so again, this was addressed to the use of social media, not browsing the internet. It is about scrolling on TikTok or on Instagram, or posting or searching for other posts. So the main motivation is being bored. This could be a very long discussion related with the concept of being bored and the impossibility of the digital natives nowadays to resist to frustration of not being continuously stimulating. This is quite an issue, and again, the researches are, let's say, controversial, because there are some that say that the danger is real, and others say that it is just the new way of existence of the digital natives. And then there is also the need for self-expression, self-discovery, and the need to relax and self-promote. This is no wonder. Again, the use of social media is higher for the pre-adolescents and adolescents, and this is, let's say, corresponding to the stage in their lives when they need this self-expression, self-discovery. So maybe the social media is responding also to some developmental needs that teenagers have. Then they report that I wrote the internet, but I think it is related to social media. has a high influence in decisions related to the future. This was something new that we added into the research, because we wanted to see the effects, and not only the negative effects, but general effects on their orientation to the future, on their orientation to the, let's say, school future, academic future. And it seems that the influence is quite high, which is a valuable information for us as adults in order to use it for making them aware of what opportunities they have for the future. Then, if we move to the harassment, bullying, and sexual exposure, we found that 40% of children say they have been offended or harassed online. I remember in the previous presentation of my colleague in Czech Republic, it was a chart that was showing all the European countries, and in that chart it was a percent of 32. So probably it is a little bit increasing. I don't know when that chart was made, when the European research was made, but since our research is from last year, I would say that probably it is a little bit, yes, it is again 3% higher than 2002, and probably higher than 2001, and so on. Teenagers and high school students and girls report this to a significantly higher extent. And out of them, 20, so half of those who say they have been offended or harassed, they say that this happened at least once a week. So we consider it as being repeated, going to maybe some continuous form of bullying. It is reported, actually the bullying, it is the first kind of offense that is reported. Then the exclusion from online groups, and I would say that in the school I work, this is the main topic in this period. Let's say I had many cases of children showing a huge amount of distress because being excluded from online groups, not real groups. Then verbal abuse and harassment by peers. Who were these authors? It seems that they were people known online, but also friends they know in real life. And out of this respondents, we see that we have an increased number of children that they say they themselves posted or sent offensive message. We consider that probably the percent is a little bit higher because not all of them are very willing to recognize they did it. So probably it's their reaction to what is happening, because if they are exposed to this either as witness or victims, they most likely will have the tendency to norm this kind of behavior, and maybe because the kind of intervention that is made in this area is minimal, or sometimes nothing is done to prevent or to stop, then probably it is a reaction mechanism to defend themselves, and they become aggressors as well. Considering the exposure to sexual or nudity, again, it is an increased percent. Almost 29 of children report that they have received messages, images. This is not that they searched, but they have been exposed. This is the nature of the item. Again, girls are more exposed, and 15 of them declare that they were asked for photos or videos depicting them in naked or in a sexual pose. And a very worrying fact that we discovered in our research was that 41% of those who say they have been asked for such images say that this request was made by an adult, not by peers. Now, because I'm a practitioner and I like very much to see the research, to see how it is the mentality and how it is the situation, I always move forward to what can be done. I want to show you a very good national program that is very old. It started in Romania since 2008. It is called the Net Hour, Ora de Net, and I put also the link. Unfortunately, there is no English version of this resource, but I think the way they approached this kind of program, it was really efficient, because there are a lot of very useful information resources, but they are not, I mean, the site itself is very good organized. And if you, as a teacher, as an educator, want to have access either to data, or either to activities, or either to materials, or either to even receive help or report something that happened, you can do in a very, very easy way. As you can see, they have a huge number of beneficiaries, of stakeholders. I myself used it many times, and if I really need something to update, I can access this very well. It is also offering advice, and it is also having a reporting line for any illegal content found on Romanian web pages. And I can confirm that some illegal contents have been reported by my school, for example, because of some incidents we had, and measures were taken in a very effective way without us doing anything else. So we just reported the situation, and that there were some web pages created that were depicting very, very disturbing and fake information, and they did all the rest. We didn't have to report it to the police or to any entity that could block the website. They did it for us, and it was very easy for us because, you know, as educator, you sometimes don't have all the easiness to cooperate with the authorities and with police and everything related with that. They can do that for us, and I appreciate this resource. It was with me since the beginning. I was aware of this program. It was called on a different name, but then they changed it to Net Hour, and it is very effective. Now I can show you also our project that was initiated last year. We call it Digital Citizenship. It was issued after we had an Erasmus Plus, not partnership, but mobility on this topic, on this digital citizenship concept. And we learned a lot of new approaches for this kind of education, let's say. And we propose it as a program that can be run either by tutors, by any teacher tutor, but also by my colleagues, by educational psychologists in school. And it is currently implemented in various schools from primary to high school, because what we made in helping implementing this program is that we issued a guide. You see, I put the link in here, Digital Citizenship, 26 lessons for all ages. This is because the lessons are from primary, addressed to children from very early ages until high school ages. approaching various topics and being very practical in teaching children how to select their information, how to address this kind of responsibility online. And of course, there are also lessons addressed to parents who could implement their own kind of not only control, but awareness of the importance of digital life of their children and of themselves. Also, we have individual counseling and network support, especially on the situation of addictions. I can confirm we have situation of highly addictive behavior from children of 10 or 12 who are not really able to stay away from their phones and their social media. And for this kind of addiction, we really needed to see what resources our town has in order to refer these cases to professional support. And I can say that even for the professional support, it is something that it is very new, and they need to adjust their therapies or their counseling from the general kind of addictions, the classical ones, to these new ones, which have the main neurophysiological mechanism, but of course they could have very different methods and approaches as therapeutical steps. I don't know what time is, and I don't know if we have time, but I prepared something practical. I can go through my exercise. It is just a short exercise, which is very impactful for children. I tested with children in small ages, but also with teenagers, and it goes very well because it is a very easy, simple exercise to make them aware of the content that they may find on social media or on internet, and the content that is not always verified, but you have a very easy way to verify and to see if what you see is real or not. It is an opening door for discussing about fake news with older students, and a very good opportunity to discuss with younger students how to select what they watch and from whom they receive information. I can show you the exercise because we don't have time, but maybe in 5 minutes I can do it very quickly. And then I can give you this material if you think it's of any use for you. I don't know what is the background of our watchers and your participants, but maybe if they are educators, they could be interested. The activity is called "A Picture is Worth 1,000 Words," and it is referring to the war in Donbass and to Save Donbass People movement. Worth saying that Donbass war started in 2014, and it is advertised by a huge amount of using children images. What we do, we go in Google Images and write and search for Save Donbass People. And then we study the first 20 results. Imagine that if we have these two questions, how many pictures of children do you notice? That in those 20 results, you can do it on your phone, you can do it on your laptop if you have it very quickly. Yes, there are many pictures of children showed under these keywords, Save Donbass People. And most likely in those 20 results, unless it is even the first result, you will find this image. This image, which is the first one I showed you, but this one is with text. Then we can copy the image, clicking on the right of the mouse or of the pad, click copy the image or link of the image. Then we can go on the internet on the tineye.com. It is a reverse image search engine. It is not the only one. It is just the one that I usually use. And you can paste the image on the link into the search area. There is the site is very easy to use. And then in that search area, you paste this origin, the link of the image or the copy. It goes with drag and drop. It goes with copy the image, with download the image, with any kind of information. And then click enter to the search and observe the results. If the left menu is not set on sort by oldest, you can do this, because what we want is to find out when it was for the first time this picture published on the internet. That is what this kind of engine does. It shows you when when and where, of course, the image was for the first time posted on the internet. And we find out, if we search, and if you search, we find out that the first time when this image was on the internet is 2010, but the war in Donbass was started in 2014. You cannot access the first links because they are in Russian language, but you can go to the first source that you can read, which is the third, and it happens to be the Commons wikimedia.org. It is important because Wikimedia shows you the pictures and the origin of the pictures. It is a very useful tool for images. And you will find reading that it is about, the picture shows a scene from a movie, from a Russian movie called The Brest Fortress. It is a war movie related with the Second World War and the defending of this fortress. And if you go again to the initial picture and you start your discussion asking them, what do you see? And you see the picture is very disturbing. It is a young girl sitting and crying next to a body, to maybe her mother or her grandmother being dead. And if you, when children or when teenagers see that this is from a movie and this was used for advertising the horrors of a war, it doesn't matter the political implication. It's just this succession of facts that you use an image, a very disturbing image from another source, and you use it for other source. It doesn't matter if your doing is positive or negative. It is wrong because it's not showing the reality. In this context of us having now fake images from EI or even crisis, and if they are old enough, they can give you a very, very interesting examples that they know about fake images that were, let's say, trendy on the internet. Then you could use questions like this to debate and to make them aware of the importance of checking your sources, and the importance of fake news, and the importance of being aware of the influence that is happening to you in a very passive way, in a very easy way by social media. And they will understand in a different way that the exposure to information, which may be perceived in a very harmless way, that is what my students say, that is very harmless what they do. But then after we have this kind of exercise, they say, no, this is different, this is important, I need to know more, I don't want to be manipulated. If you ask the children, they will say they don't want to be manipulated. Us as adults, we don't want to be manipulated. If we know that somebody wants to change our opinion, what will happen, it is that psychologically, we will have reactance, we will have opposition to this, we will fight anyone who would like to influence us. So if we get this reactance from our learners, doesn't matter the age, then we can start building this awareness about the importance of checking the sources, the importance of using media, and being aware of the manipulation made by images or by words. And this kind of awareness is the first step to being a good, educated digital citizen. Thank you. This was my intervention. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to respond.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you very much. It was very, very interesting, and I am happy that you could contribute also from the point of view of a practitioner who really is in touch with children and adolescents who may have this problem, and that you have on-hand experience with solving and treating the problems. Unfortunately, I think, is there any question? We could maybe give it a 30-second time, but we are a little bit late. I'm sorry, Dana, because we exceeded
I know, I'm
time.
sorry.
So
I'm
I
sorry.
apologize to our next speaker. So thank you
It's
once
okay.
again. Stay with us if you can, and you are most welcome to join us even
Classes
later.
and other commitments are finished because we value your opinion and you could always contribute. Thank you, Dana, once again.
Thank you, Dana, once again.
And now I would like to introduce and invite Mrs. Christine, if I pronounce this name properly, excuse me, Christine Trültzsch-Wijnen from Charles University in Prague, and Mrs. Trültzsch-Wijnen will tell us something about media literacy and media socialization of young people. So, dear Christine, I will give you the floor now. You can share your screen with us, and you can use the remaining time or even a little bit more of time, because we have enough time after this frame for this session is being closed. So the floor is yours.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I will share my screen now. Just a moment. Okay, somehow. No, it will work. Okay, it was just a small technical problem, but you should see my screen now.
Yes, it's perfect now.
So, okay, going to presentation mode. Yes. I would like to talk a little bit about media literacy and media socialization. And in contrary to the both presenters before me, David Smahel and Dana, who presented a lot of empirical data, I will go more on a theoretical perspective, which is also grounded in my empirical work, but it is more theoretically. And at the end of my presentation, I will also have some recommendations for our practitioners. So first, I would like to start because particularly in public discourse, we have so many empirical results, and we have different public discourse on young people's media use and also media literacy. And first, I think it's important to make a difference between these different perspectives. So on one hand, we can observe a cultural pessimism, people that say that media are generally bad, and in particular screen media and digital devices so often make connections to health problems, bad performance at schools and work, but even societal challenges like rising crime rates or media addictedness and things like that. And interesting is, and I think that is also important, particularly for practitioners who are not so used to academic research, that often in such few empirical data from various studies are mixed incoherently to support specific theories. For example, studies on crime rates and studies on media use are not connected to each other. And somehow they try to make connections that are not fitting. On the other hand, we have the contrary. It is media aphoria, or today we should technology aphoria, which says that media is a solution for everything, and in particular, digital technologies make people and their environment smarter and also make learning processes more effective.
Christine, I will stop you. Excuse me, but your presentation is not going to the other slides. We are still seeing just the first slide.
But I'm in a presentation mode. So does there anything change?
No, still the first one only.
Okay, then I will do it differently.
Now you have moved. Yes.
So I'm not going to the presentation mode, and because I think so it's better if the presentation mode does not work. Okay. Yes. Also, with this media aphoria perspective, it is important to see that empirical data are also often one-sided, the empirical data that they're using. And a more academic point of view is the view of critical optimism, which is also the view that we as researchers in media communication, sociology, and psychology have. It is the focus on risks and opportunities as well, and in particular on the active role of young people, which means that we are focusing on individual and additional factors, like, for example, social environment or psychological factors. And, for example, also the thing that there might be some risky or potential risky content that must not be harmful to every child, because it is so much depending on the environment and on other factors, if it is really turning out to harm. And even then, does this come to the development of coping strategies, or is it really another kind of risky experience? So we have always to see both sides. And from the educational perspective, critical optimism tries to support children in the avoiding of risk, but also in the development of coping strategies, and the support in seizing chances, and also, of course, in the development of media literacy as a basis for self-confident media use. And from this perspective, we can also say media can support learning processes. And this perspective has a huge empirical evidence and studies from all academic fields, like, for example, EU Kids Online. And as a result, we can say that it is optimism is the key, but still we have to be critical, and we don't have to forget it, in particular if you're looking to vulnerable children. So, but this active individual, what does this mean? It means that a media content has a subjective meaning for different people, and also the ways how we engage with media can be very different. We as individuals actively select media according to different situational contexts or our purposes, and this can also have the result that one and the same media or media content can have different effects on our psychosocial development. For the media education perspective, it can say that media can never be a substitute for real-life experiences, but they might or are be a valuable addition. So, changing from the individual to society, then we see today we can say we live in a so-called deep mediatized society, which means that communication, at least in the northern, in the global north, the communication in all areas of life are increasingly influenced by digital technologies. So we cannot live life without digital media anymore. Even if you're not using it at home, it is outside the homes, it's in public transport, in shopping centers, at school, at work. So also socialization without media is not possible anymore, because they are everywhere. And this is also important for educators, that the concept of a media-free walled garden, like school or kindergarten, is outdated. We have also, as educators, we have to face these media. And now we're coming to socialization. So what role can media play in processes of socialization? At one hand, they can be factors of socialization. So like also Dana presented the influencers, so sources of information about values or public opinions. They can influence our personal knowledge and attitudes and values, or even our behavior. Then media can be factors of socialization, so they mediate our learning processes, our socialization. Or they can also be an instrument of socialization. So they are sources of self-exploration and engaging with the social environment. So for example, making poses, making photos with posing, and trying to make different pictures and to pose on different pictures is a kind of self-exploration of my identity, or the engagement with my peers online is also that also media are an instrument of socialization. And if we look on this more in detail, then we see that there are three important processes going on through in the socialization process. And this is important not only for children and young people, but also for adults, because socialization never stops. And also as adults, we have certain situations where we have crises, where we have some developmental tasks. Then sometimes it is consciously, sometimes it is also unconscious. Then we come to the three important things that we have to do. One is exploration of the self. So who am I? Am I satisfied with this? Who do I want to be? Who do I want to become? This is the management of identity, also important for young people. And the online world, it is sharing photos and videos and information in online networks. This can be a part of the management of identity, and also the feedback that I get from others. Then important in socialization process is the exploration of the social environment. So am I satisfied with my social network and with the friends that I have, or the connections at work or at school? This is the management of relationships. And here we have a very strong connection between online and offline relationships. So the communication with my closest friends can also be via instant messaging, or combined with instant messaging and online networks. And for young people, it is also very important, the liking, sharing, and commenting of posts of friends, because this is also a giving feedback and showing that people are my friends. And the third important perspective is the orientation in the world, which is always important, the management of information, so searching for information and reflecting and evaluating information. And this is in particular, we have this, of course, in the offline world, but today the online world becomes here very, very important. And so if we see all of these tasks can be related to risk and opportunities as well. So because media socialization, or because socialization today is always a kind of media socialization, media literacy is also a key for everybody in today's world. And then comes the next problem, because media literacy, everybody's talking about media literacy. We have millions of definitions, and still it is difficult to define. We can say more generally that it is a diverse set of skills and knowledge and abilities that enable an individual to critically reflect media, but also use media with discernment and in a self-determined way. It is important for everybody. And it is acquired in informal and informal learning settings. And we start from the first day from our birth until the last day of our life, that we will never stop learning and also never stop gaining literacy. But there are some challenges in these different definitions. So we can say a broad definition like the one that I just have said has proven expedient, but still we have the problem that many or most definitions are normative and lack reference to the socially embeddedness of media literacy. And this, I think, the central message for today, I would say it is important to understand media literacy also as social practice, and to focus on the practical sense of media activity. And some of you might now ask, why do I think this? And I have empirical evidence, which is interesting because I have here some references from Sonderbix in 2011 until Wijinen to 2024. So again and again, we have so many studies and empirical evidence with rather similar results. Namely that in comparison with children and adolescents from other social backgrounds, young people with a higher level of formal education and a higher socioeconomic status appear to be more critical with regards to media, to be more self-determined with regards to media, and often also have a more varied media repertoire. So the question is why, and why doesn't this change? And also we have studies from different continents, from different times. Why is it always similar? And the other question is, and why is this important when we are talking about media literacy? And this is one example that if we have a closer look into this empirical data, we see that media are closely interwoven with multiple processes of socialization and learning. And of course, in this process, we get media literacy. And also, when we're talking about socialization, we know that there are many social and individual factors that influence socialization. And now, from a theoretical point of view, we would have different possibilities to look at this. We can do it from an interactionist approach, from cultural studies, then we have these questions of oppositional reading, but also the concept of life world and media generations. This is interesting. Of course, there's also a lot of media socialization going on when we're talking about media generation. And we can also approach this question from the perspective of field theory from Pierre Bourdieu. For today, I will take over this perspective because the theory has a few important parts. One is the habitus and the other one is social distinction. And I will now explain why this is important for understanding media literacy. So in general, habitus is, I could say, it is just the way we are behaving and what we are doing, what we are thinking, and what we find as normal, being ourselves. And this habitus is the result of prior experiences. And it also determines perceptions and judgments of the social and material world. And this again is also different social and individual factors, for example, also gender, also ethnic origin, or experiences of migration and so on. And the result of this habitus is our practical sense. So we act, we feel this is natural for us. And this habitus is also important with regards to media, and we can talk about media-related habitus. And this is that individuals also integrate media and specific kind of media into their daily lives in whatever manner it seems natural and normal and practical for them. So they approach media in the way like it feels logical, practical, and useful for them against the background of their habitus. And this media-related habitus is again also influenced by an individual's media socialization at home, in the social environment, at school, the media biography, and also experiences of media, and media education. So in a graph, it would look like that. We have this bigger social, this bigger society in which we have different social milieus that have different amount of economic, cultural, and social capital. And in this social milieu, there lives a family, which has a specific habitus which is also related to the social milieu. And the family has a specific media habitus that is related to this general habitus. And this is the base for education, media education, and socialization in the family. And this influences the individual that is growing up in this family, and also the media habitus. But not only the families, it's also the peers and friends, and other institutions like school or clubs and culture that can influence the media-related habitus of an individual. And the other point of the theory is social distinction, which is also important for media literacy. This means that social differences relate to education and upbringing. So that a certain kind of habitus that develops in a family is very much related to social differences with regards to economic, cultural, and social capital. And the effect is that different social milieux have also different ways of conduct of their everyday life and of their cultural needs and social practices. For example, the taste, also the media taste, more information-oriented, more entertainment-oriented ideas, values, views of the world, also status symbols and clothing and things like that. And this class affiliation has very much to do with the habitus of the people. And what is also important, people like to have the similarities with people of their own milieu, and they are also striving for distinction. So because this also is a point of feeling that what they are doing is good. So there are also other people that have the same values and ideas, and I do not want to be like others. For example, I would never, if people say I would never read any tabloid newspapers or entertainment media. I'm more interested in information media and quality media. This is also a kind of social distinction of people like this. And one example, this is not yet with regards to media, but it will come. One example where we have a lot of studies that can describe social distinction is formal education, because there we see also that children that have some kind of education from their family that fits between the demands of the school have an advantage over other children with regards to the language. So, for example, they are not speaking dialect, they are speaking the language of the school. They have internalized certain habits that are valued at school. They have a kind of motivation to learn because they have already learned this approach from home. And other children do not have this, for example, who are used to speaking dialect, and certainly they have to talk another language at school, have more problems. And this, we can ask, why is this important for media literacy? Because we see exactly the same effect in the field of media literacy. And this is because when we have a closer look into media literacy, we see a difference between what we call media literacy or the media competencies. This is our knowledge, certain skills, also internalized values, and we have the performance. And there are always factors in between. For example, you can have a certain knowledge, but sometimes you do not use your knowledge because you have the feeling it doesn't make sense for you. And also the other way around, we gain media literacy when we are engaging with media, but it depends on our interests. And if it really have the feeling that it makes sense, that we transfer our media engagement into knowledge and skills that we can use later on. And maybe the example of Dana is a good one. So just talking about fake news probably wouldn't be interesting and make sense, but sometimes if you really have the feeling, okay, I'm manipulated, then it does make sense. And then we get to transfer from knowledge to performance. So on these slides is more or less what I have just said. So very important for this transfer between the literacy, the competence, knowledge, and skills and values and attitudes to actual media performance is motivated by individual and environmental factors. And these factors are very important is the practical sense, which means the motivation and the interest, but also the familiarity with the task. So am I used to use information media or reading or not? or am I more used to watching videos? So this could also be a kind of practical sense. The attitudes and the norms and values, but also the age, when we have more the cognitive and developmental tasks, the self-determination, and many other factors that we not yet know. We know that there are many factors that are important, but not everything is researched. Age is rather simple because younger children are have to learn to make moral and cognitive judgments or perspective taking and development of ego identity. This is important to understand media and media content. But when we are talking about children a little bit older, so starting from primary school and secondary school onwards, then it is the developmental tasks that are very important, age moderating factor. And this is also important not only for children, but only, for example, for seniors, for people, for grown-ups in different ages that have to are faced with specific developmental tasks, like, for example, starting a family, becoming retired. And this is moderating also our way of media practice. And one, in particular, when it comes to children, young people, it is motivation. It is a very important factor. It is the factor that makes us use our knowledge and skills. For example, if children are able to circumvent a firewall, some will do it, others won't. And even it means even if they have the skills, then it's also a factor, is it valued at school or not? Then also the cognitive mastery of rules. A lot of young people know about critical reflection in media, but sometimes they do just not bother to compare different sources of information or to set privacy settings, because in their personal perspective, it does not make sense for them, because they have the feeling they don't use it. And unless they have the feeling that it makes sense, they will not do it. And also, what I already said, when we are engaging with media, and if we get some knowledge out of this engagement, is also very much connected to our motivation. The familiarity with the tasks is also important when it comes to the way we're using media. So are we used, for example, to use more information-oriented material or more entertainment material? So if we do not feel secure, if we do not feel happy, then it will also be more problematic to really in our media action, even if we know, for example, how to use or how to research at the internet. And so we have different contexts that are somehow important for us in this way. And the central question is really, does it make sense for us? And I will also have some empirical examples, but from this more theoretical part, we can conclude that two individuals, although they would have the same level of media competence, could show differences in their media performance, because sometimes they are not familiar with a specific form of media use, they are not equally interested, or sometimes they are distinguishing themselves and by a means of legitimate media use. They are just saying, I'm not doing that, but in fact, they will do it. And we can see this in some empirical examples. So these are 3 studies, and I will not go into that because the time is not enough. And it's also not interesting to get just this empirical data. In particular, the first study is a rather old one, but the results are interesting because it underlines that media literacy is not always what we see at first glance. So I had, for example, a project on model casting shows and how young people critically reflect these. And at first glance, I had the same results like we often have, that people with higher SAS seem to be more critical. This was when we did a questionnaire. where we had interviews and focus group discussions and an in-depth analysis, we showed that both higher and lower SES young people were similar critical, but lower SES young people were not able to formulate their critique. They were not able to put it into words. They were also not familiar to how to say critique, how to do this. And on the other hand, we had some social distinction and social desirability, that we had higher SES people that just said, oh, I'm just looking at it for fun, it's not important for me. But in fact, they were the biggest fans. And we had even parasocial relationships found in these people, but they knew this is not wanted at school. So I'm giving social desirable answers. And lower SES young people just were more true because they did not know what would be social desirable. So the conclusion of this study is that lower SES young people were not less media literate, but they lacked cultural capital in form of media education at home, the knowledge of legitimate media taste, so language education. Another project, this is a more actual project, but it's on the parent, but even with parents, we have similar results. When we look on how are parents using digital networks for getting support in their parenting. And then we see all of the parents this was an European project, used their online networks. But it were, again, more those with higher social capital that were most active, felt most supported, and parents with less social capital were less active, and they also did not feel supported because somehow it did not make sense for them, although they were the parents who would have needed more support. And so we see these barriers, social barriers, are displayed in the media and in the ways they use the media. And the third example is on how adolescents use the internet and their kind of media literacy. And there we could also find differences in the graph. It is just a graph where we have some information about general habitus. It is very much close to what Bourdieu did in his studies. Then the green part is the media habitus. So in particular, it is more high culture or more entertainment or more or less media education at home. And then really skills and abilities with regards to media. And then we have on the right side people from lower SES background, and on the left side we have people from higher or middle SES background. And then we see clear differences in what they get from their home, what is their media habitus, and what are their skills and competences, unless when it comes to the transfer from abstract knowledge to practice. And there we can also see that the lower SES young people are not less skilled, but they just have other kinds of knowledge. For example, the higher SES young people had a very good abstract knowledge, but were weak in bringing this knowledge into practice. And the lower SES young people had more an application-oriented knowledge. Then also the higher SES young people had an internalized legitimate media taste, so they know what we as researchers would find as good, and they are giving a lot of social desirable answers. And the lower SES young people just did not conform the legitimate media taste because they didn't know what it is. Also, the technical skills sometimes of the lower SES young people were much higher, but often it was skills that were less important or even condemned at school, like, for example, knowing how to skip the school's firewall. But still, it is a high technical skill to do this. Then also the higher SES young people were more used to written text, to formulating criticism, and also to evaluating media content because they had learned it at school in class. And the other ones had problems with written text, but they had a kind of media literacy because they knew, okay, if I have problem with reading, then there are a lot of videos and pictures, and I can get the information also on an audiovisual or on the visual way. So they had And this is also kind of media literacy, how to cope with a personal problem. I'm not so good at reading and writing, but then I'm using videos and I get the same information. What we also could see is that simply, in general, the higher SSN people were used to perform in the situation of knowledge testing and were better. And the lower SSN people, even if they had good knowledge and abilities and skills, they were not so good able to display their skills and their knowledge in the testing. And now I'm already at the final conclusion. So first I could say it is more for the research. We have to be careful when we are interpreting empirical results. So when we are judging people's media literacy, and sometimes we'll also have to be careful in designing empirical studies that they do not only fit the higher skilled and highly educated people, but also the lower educated people. And I think what is more important for you is the other conclusion, what is really the recommendations for education. We have to be very sensible if it comes to media education in formal settings, because we really have to respect all the children and all adolescents and all the media words of them, not only reading and but also audiovisual content and games, what is important for them and what makes sense for them, because then starting with this, then we can make a good education. Also, we have to address different media and media content through the eyes of the children and adolescents. Sometimes we do not understand why this makes sense for them, why is this so important. So we have to avoid generation bias. And we have to start media education with close connection to real life experiences. And this, there again, I have the connection to Dana's example. You have to start with real life experiences. And if this makes sense, then you will be successful. Also, we have to be sensible for cultural fit. So not only valuing this young people that are close to high culture and education, but also being sensible that maybe a kind of dealing with media content, for example, information seeking and things like that. Maybe some young people are not really used to that, so they have first to learn it, or have other ways to get the information. This means that we have to have a very close look on individual abilities and knowledge and skills. And we also have to value all these skills and knowledge. Even, for example, if some kinds of skill and knowledge we do not find so important, but we have to value it and we have to show them that we value it. This means not making too quick judgments if a child is media literate or not, and feeling okay if young people might have another opinion like we have as educators. Because I think the last sentence I think is really important. So if we accept all the young people and if we are trusted by them, then media literacy education will turn out into practical sense for them. But if media literacy education does not make sense for them, it is just a task that they have to learn at school and they will forget as soon as they are at home again. So, and now I can say thank you very much, and I will stop sharing my screen, and every question is welcome. Lucy, I do not hear you. So yes. Thank you.
I would like to ask anyway, because I wanted to ask Dana already in the previous contribution, but we didn't have time. So I will ask you because I believe you could answer just as well. The conclusions you showed us, the last slide, was a very good confirmation of some conclusions we have gained through our focus groups we have performed during our project, during our research. And I'm very happy to hear it from, or see it from other side, even from the, like a serious big research done at university level from some other source that complement other findings. And I want to ask, during our focus groups, I realized that the children may do something or post something what is harmful or is abusive, but you said, don't be judgmental, because we do not know why the children did it. And at the age of 11, when they are entering the world of social media, they many times do it just out of curiosity, because it's something they met for the first time, they want to share for the first time, they want to shock their peers for the first time, so they do it out of curiosity. And my children are 14, and I can already see that this behavior is somehow being getting better. So is there any trend obvious in these researches that everything that appears at the early age, let's say at the age of 10 or 11 or pre-adolescent age, because children simply need to try, does it get better in time? Can we say that the older children are more aware of things and they can behave more responsibly online, or it is getting worse with age because they dare much more to do harmful things?
Well, the answer cannot be general, because, as I have said, it is very much depending on the single person, on the single child. But of course, we have some, like this people from 11, this is starting puberty, or the first steps to not being a child, or even if they find a picture, even if they themselves do not really like to see it, but they are just posting this to show I'm able to do it and I'm big enough. And this kind of behavior, because this is the early puberty, with regards to, in particular, when it comes to pornography and sexuality, this decreases when it is getting more clear for the young people. I'm a boy, I'm a girl, what are the differences? So it is not so they are feeling not so curious about this anymore. But we have also other kinds of misbehavior, or even if cyberbullying, sometimes they do not really know what they are doing. It is just a quick post or a comment, and they are not really realizing what they are really doing and how harmful this can be. And I think the possibility for educators, I would not say we do not have to do anything and it will become better anyway. To a certain extent, we have age and things are changing when young people are getting older, and sometimes a certain kind of media content is not important for them anymore. Or, for example, with girls, they just need to chat, and at a certain age, it is not so important for them anymore. So the time online will not be so important for them anymore. But I think still, as parents and also as educators, but even more as parents, it is important to have an environment at home that is safe, that where is trust, even if it comes to difficult time of puberty. Then you should try to have a kind of trust, and some they will do some things that they will not report you. If they have found something about pornography, they might not report it to the mother. But still, if they have a backup at home, then when it comes to the problem, if risks are possible, that they are confronted with, for example, a splatter movie or things like that, and they cannot cope with it, then they might be coming to the parents and talking with the parents. Or even sometimes it is just good to have the feeling at home it is good. or if they are seeing some kind of cyber mobbing, sometimes it is not, they don't realize that it's really, that there's something going on, it's really harmful, but sometimes when they're feeling, okay, I don't find it's good what others do, for example, with my friend, then maybe if there is some trust in the family, even in puberty, then they will begin to talk. And I think this is the point then that we can discuss. And also this kind of education. So always it has to make sense. So if you want to talk about pornography, then you should not talk about pornography in general, but then you should talk about how would you feel if I would post this photo, this private photo online, even if you are not naked, but if you are just, it's not so good photo, how would you feel if I would post it? And then it would make practical sense.
Yes, thank you very much. This once again confirmed our intermediate conclusions that we are feeling during our project, that the weakest part of this educational process is the parent, who many times cannot cope properly, cannot themselves behave properly in the critical situation and be a good educator, even though there are good intentions, but the outcome is not that effective and good. Yeah.
Yes, we need more media education for parents.
Absolutely.
And still, even then, it would be the higher educated parents that would attend these courses for media education. It would not be the families that would need it most. And we have these problems in society. We can try somehow to make some media literacy education at school, but it will always be more difficult for those who already have difficulties.
Yeah.
And I think we might not change this.
That's true. Yeah, we are going this direction, and our outputs, the final outputs, will be focused at teachers, at children, but we realize more and more that the major part of the work needs to be done towards parents to get them involved and take part of responsibility for this. Thank you, Christine. Any other question? Feel free to ask. All right. So I think we are done with the session. I would like to thank you very much. This was exceptionally interesting, at least for me personally. And we will certainly use some of the conclusions we have seen for the conclusions of our workshops that will continue after the lunch break. So thank you, Christine, once again. It was a pleasure. Pity that I cannot, maybe I could turn around so that you can see the room at least a little bit, because I haven't yet. So thank you once again, and we will finish this session now, and you are invited and most welcome to join us also in the afternoon in case you are interested in the other presentations that we will have in the afternoon session at 13:30. We will start again. Thank you again.
Okay. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
All right. So this is time for lunch break, but I will ask our coordinators if